Leo, my fiery friend, your world is about to shift in ways that will leave you speechless. And no, this isn't some dramatic exaggeration, I mean it literally. What's coming may feel shocking at first, but it's exactly what your soul signed up for. You're not just being tested, you're being positioned. And your wallet? It's about to feel the ripple effect. Karma is moving, and it's moving in your favor. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt like life pulled the rug out from under you, only for you to rise stronger than before? Think about it. Because if you've been walking through setbacks, confusion, or unexpected emotional weight lately, there's a reason. You're not being punished. You're being refined. The truth is, the universe doesn't give warnings, it gives whispers. And if you're here right now, watching this, it's because you heard one of those whispers. And chose to follow it. That matters. You're not watching this by chance. You're watching this because your spirit is ready for a deeper message, one that's not just about predictions, but about purpose. This space, this moment, is more than content, it's connection. Welcome to Eternal Mindfulness, where we don't just read horoscopes. We decode energy. We explore the sacred timing behind every heartbreak, every breakdown, every breakthrough. And we do it together, grounded, real, and deeply intuitive. Here, we honor where you've been. But more importantly, we activate where you're going. I won't sugarcoat things. Life as a Leo hasn't exactly been smooth sailing this year. Your strength has been tested. Your fire has been challenged. But guess what? That wasn't a setback. That was alignment. Because right now, a door is opening, one that leads to unexpected blessings, overdue rewards, and yes, financial shifts that have been a long time coming. I want to take a moment to say something personal. Thank you. Truly. Thank you for being here. Every time you choose to comment, to like, to share, you're not just supporting a channel. You're contributing to a movement. You're part of a community that believes in healing, in timing, in sacred transformation. And your presence here makes all the difference. You are not invisible in this space. You are seen. You are heard. You are remembered. So here's what I want from you before we dive into this powerful message. Drop a comment right now and simply write, "I'm ready to receive what's mine." That's it. Not for the algorithm, but for you. For your energy. For the signal you're sending out to the universe that says, "I'm open. I'm listening. I'm done playing small." Stick with me to the very end, because what I'm about to share might just be the mirror your soul has been searching for. You've been faithful through the fall. Now, it's time for your rise. And trust me when I say the sky is opening, I mean it. Let's begin. You know, sometimes the moments that knock us off our feet aren't signs that we're weak, they're signs that we're finally being realigned. And Leo, if you felt lately like life pulled you into a pause, or even shoved you to the ground emotionally, mentally, or financially, I want to gently suggest that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a setback. It was a setup. A setup for something bigger, deeper, and more aligned with who you're becoming. In astrology, Leo is a fixed fire sign, powerful, expressive, proud. But even fire needs fuel. And right now, the skies are shifting in a way that's calling you to take a breath before the next ignition. With Saturn casting its firm, boundary-setting gaze over your chart, this has been a season of deep reckoning. Not punishment but pruning. And if it's felt heavy, it's because you've outgrown the weight you've been carrying. At the same time, Jupiter, the planet of growth, abundance, and divine opportunity, is forming a supportive trine to your chart. That's not a coincidence. That's divine balance. One planet is asking you to let go of what no longer serves. The other is whispering, I'm about to bless you, but you've got to make room. And this, Leo, is the tension before the breakthrough. Let's be honest. Growth rarely feels like a gentle unfolding. More often, it's messy, inconvenient, and incredibly vulnerable. It looks like plans falling apart. People walking away. Doors slamming shut just as you were reaching for them. But in my experience, both personal and with thousands of people I've guided, it's exactly in those moments that the real work begins. Not the external hustle, but the inner shift. The quiet moment when you stop asking, why is this happening to me, and start asking, what is this here to teach me? Sometimes, the fall is sacred. It strips away the noise. It pulls you back to your knees, not to beg, but to realign. To ground. To listen. And what's wild is that the moment we surrender to that process, when we stop fighting the fall, that's when the first rays of the next season start to peek through. Tarot mirrors this too. Cards like the Tower, the Ten of Swords, even Death, they aren't symbols of endings. They're symbols of truth. Of transformation. Of liberation disguised as chaos. And for Leo, who thrives on identity, on knowing who you are and where you're going, these cards and these life moments can feel brutal. But underneath the rubble, there is always clarity. There is always new ground to build on. And when you rise, and you will, it will be with more depth, more humility, and far more clarity than ever before. If you've been clinging to a version of yourself, a relationship, a role, a story out of fear or comfort or simply habit, now is the time to gently lay it down. Not because it was bad, but because it's not yours anymore. The person who once needed it is evolving. You're evolving. And you can't take yesterday's skin into tomorrow's sunlight. I say this often, and I'll say it again here. The law of attraction isn't about forcing yourself to be happy all the time. It's about honesty. Frequency follows truth. When you acknowledge your pain, your patterns, your part, that's when you start vibrating differently. And the universe? It doesn't reward perfection. It responds to readiness. So take a breath. Look at what you've walked through. See it for what it is, not as failure, but as refinement. As fire burning away what no longer resonates, so that what's left is pure. Real. Unshakable. You're not being delayed. You're being calibrated. This isn't just a low point, Leo. This is the point before the rise. And your rise. It's not only coming, it's already begun. Stay with me. You'll want to see what comes next. Sometimes, the things we've been waiting for the longest arrive when we've finally stopped chasing them. You've probably heard people say, money flows where energy goes, but that's only part of the story. The deeper truth is, money, just like love, trust, or recognition, is a frequency. And if your frequency has been shifting lately, if you've been shedding old stories, walking away from what's no longer aligned, or learning how to respect your own boundaries, then that shift is already in motion whether you can see it or not. Leo, I want you to imagine your financial energy like a current that's been building quietly beneath the surface. It's not loud. It's not showy. But it's steady. And the thing about energy is, it always returns to its source. Every effort you made, every hour you spent giving, building, believing, especially when no one was watching, has not gone unnoticed. The universe doesn't work on your timeline, but it does keep impeccable records. We're in a window right now where delayed blessings are catching up. And for you, this might look like a check you forgot about suddenly arriving in the mail. A client who ghosted finally circling back. A project you shelved last year reigniting with momentum. Or maybe, more subtly, you'll notice that your money mindset is changing. You're spending with more intention, receiving with less guilt, trusting with more peace. That, too, is abundance. Astrologically speaking, you've got supportive aspects lighting up your house of finances, and in numerology, the recurring presence of numbers like 8 and 6 is no coincidence. 8 is the number of power, regeneration, and karmic return. 6 is the number of harmony, home, and restoration. When they appear together, it's often a sign that not only is wealth on its way, but that it's arriving in a form that brings both healing and empowerment. I know it's tempting to think you have to do more, push harder, chase faster. But if there's one thing I've learned both from my own experiences and from the countless people I've guided, it's this: true abundance rarely comes from force. It comes from alignment. From knowing what you're worthy of, and creating space to actually receive it. This doesn't mean sit back and do nothing. But it does mean you stop running after opportunities that don't feel right. You stop proving your value to people who can't see it. You stop trying to fix yourself to match a version of success that was never yours to begin with. Because when you do that, when you finally get still and honest, that's when the flow begins again. You might not see the breakthrough yet, but that doesn't mean it isn't already on the way. Energy works like that. It builds invisibly, quietly, until one day it bursts through like water from a cracked dam. And that's why I say, with full conviction, your wallet is about to open in ways you didn't expect. Not because you hustled harder, but because you aligned deeper. So pause. Breathe. Reflect on how far you've come. Remind yourself that you're allowed to receive. That you've earned more than just survival. You've earned ease, and joy, and overflow. And if this message is stirring something in you, say it aloud or write it in the comments. I'm open to receiving what is already mine. Because sometimes, that's the only permission the universe needs. Love has a strange way of arriving. Not always when we want it, but almost always when we're finally ready to hold it with open hands instead of clenched fists. And Leo, if there's a shift happening in your heart space right now, if you felt an emotional pull, a stirring, even a quiet sense that someone is getting closer, you're not imagining it. What's coming toward you isn't just love in the romantic sense. It's alignment. It's healing. It's the arrival of a soul who doesn't just walk into your life, but steps directly into your story. I've seen it too many times to call it coincidence. When two people who've been walking through darkness finally find each other, it's like two stars reigniting in the same sky. It's not about filling a void. It's about recognition. You've done the work. You've been alone, not just physically, but in the kind of soul-deep solitude that teaches you how to sit with your own shadow. And now, There's someone else, someone who has walked their own wilderness, and they're being guided right to your doorstep. When I look at the cards that anchor this energy, the Ace of Cups, Two of Cups, and Ten of Pentacles, I don't just see a new relationship. I see emotional rebirth. I see a heart being filled not from desperation, but from overflow. I see a partnership that carries not just passion, but purpose. Because when love arrives on healed ground, it doesn't deplete you. It expands you. It awakens the parts of you that had grown quiet. And it reminds you of what's possible when you stop settling for connections that only mirror your wounds. This kind of union, this soul-level meeting, is rare not because it's unreachable, but because it requires preparation. And Leo, that's what your past has been about. Every heartbreak, every disappointment, every time you chose yourself even when it hurt, that was sacred groundwork. You were not being punished. You were being prepared. And now that preparation is bearing fruit. What's beautiful about this energy is that it's not just emotional. There's a very clear thread of abundance woven through it. When two people come together in alignment, they don't just create a bond, they create momentum. And for you, this connection could bring more than just love. It could bring opportunity, stability, financial flow. Because when your nervous system feels safe, your creative energy unlocks. You dream bigger. You take bolder steps. You feel supported in ways that make the impossible suddenly feel like a warm invitation. So let me say this gently, especially if you've been burned in the past, you don't need to fear this. You don't need to question whether it's too good to be true. You just need to stay open. Not naive, but open. Open to the idea that maybe you're not too much. Maybe you were just waiting for someone who's ready for all of you. Wear gold if you want to amplify your confidence. It calls in clarity, dignity, and warmth. Wear deep red if you want to call in passion, not the kind that burns out quickly, but the kind that simmers, steadies, and strengthens over time. Let your energy speak before your words do. Let your readiness be felt, not forced. And most of all, remember, love doesn't come to fix you. It comes to meet you. Right where you are, as you are. That's the kind of connection you're walking toward now. If you feel this message in your chest, like a soft ache or a sense of recognition, say it out loud or write it below. I'm ready for a love that expands me. Because sometimes, declaring your readiness is what opens the door. There's a quiet kind of frustration that builds up when an idea lingers in the back of your mind for too long. You know, the one, the dream you've shelved a dozen times. The project you swore you'd start when the timing feels right. That thing you think about in the shower, during long walks, or when you're stuck in traffic wondering if this version of your life is really all there is. If that's been tugging at you again lately, there's a reason. And no, you're not late. You're right on cosmic time. Sometimes, the universe doesn't need us to invent something new, it just needs us to remember. To go back to the original spark, the moment of clarity before fear crept in and told us we weren't ready, or qualified, or worthy. And right now, astrologically speaking, everything is aligning to bring that memory back to life. With Mercury finally in direct motion, communication flows smoother, decisions feel more grounded, and the mental fog starts to lift. This is the green light energy you've been waiting for, not to rush blindly forward, but to step forward with confidence in something you've already carried inside you for a long time. You, Leo, are naturally wired for boldness. You're not here to play it small or hide behind someday. And with fire signs like Aries and Sagittarius also amplifying your field right now, the message is simple: start. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be loud. But it does have to begin. Action creates traction even if it's just one small move. This is the part where people usually wait for permission, or for a perfect sign. But what if the fact that you're feeling this again is the sign? What if the discomfort you feel when you push that idea aside is the very nudge you've been asking for? What if this time, instead of abandoning it, you stayed? There's a reason that particular idea keeps finding its way back to you. It's because it's tied to your evolution. Maybe it's a creative pursuit that lights you up, a business model that feels like freedom, or a way of helping others that reflects what you've already overcome. Whatever it is, it's more than a project, it's a piece of your purpose. And no one else can bring it to life the way you can. So ask yourself this, gently but honestly: what have I been putting off that actually makes me feel alive? What idea do I keep silencing that I secretly wish would scream louder? Then, take one step. Not a leap. Not a transformation. Just one grounded, intentional step. Sign up for that course. Buy that book. Create a free outline. Invest an hour this week, not for success, but for your own sense of becoming. That's how momentum builds. Not through pressure, but through presence. Through choosing to believe that even if it's imperfect, it's still worth doing. Through reminding yourself that you don't have to get it all right, you just have to show up differently than you did yesterday. And maybe, just maybe, the version of you who once doubted this dream wasn't wrong, they just weren't ready. But the version of you today? The one still holding the vision, despite the delays and the doubts? They are. If that stirs something in you, take a breath and say it out loud or comment below: I'm ready to begin again. Sometimes, that's all the universe needs to hear. It's strange how life hides some of its biggest turning points inside the smallest, most ordinary moments. A last-minute invitation. A dinner you almost said no to. A change of schedule that places you in the right room, with the right people, at the right time. Leo, if something recently stirred your curiosity, an event, a trip, a gathering, and your intuition quietly whispered, go, that's not something to brush off. That's alignment in motion. That's the universe gently moving the chess pieces so you can meet someone or something that shifts everything. I've seen it too often to call it coincidence. People find soul-level connections in the most unexpected places. And not just romantic connections, I'm talking about allies, partners, mentors, collaborators. People who see something in you that others overlook. People who activate your purpose by simply standing beside you. This kind of meeting doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It sneaks in through eye contact, a shared story, or a moment that makes you feel completely seen for the first time in a long while. If something inside you has been nudging you out of your comfort zone, if you felt the pull to show up somewhere unfamiliar, this might be why. But this chapter is not just about who's entering. It's also about who's exiting. Or more accurately, about karmic cycles finally completing. And sometimes, that means watching the scales balance without lifting a finger. There may be someone from your past who once caused harm. Maybe they underestimated you. Betrayed you. Took more than they gave. And maybe, for a long time, you carried the weight of their actions, wondering if the universe had forgotten to intervene. It hasn't. The energy right now is full of reckoning, not in a vengeful way, but in a deeply just one. What's been out of balance is being restored. What was taken is returning in new form. And you don't need to seek revenge or hold on to bitterness. Because as you rise, something remarkable happens. Those who once tried to block your light will be forced to watch you shine. Not in spite of what they did, but because you chose to heal through it, rather than harden because of it. Your growth is the proof. The way you've carried yourself. The way you've chosen compassion without becoming a doormat. The way you've built something steady on the ruins of something that nearly broke you. That's power. And that power doesn't need an audience, but it will naturally draw one. If you find yourself in a moment where the past returns in memory, in person, or in emotion, take it as confirmation that the healing has worked. You've come full circle. And what used to sting might now simply feel distant, neutral, irrelevant. Because that's the real justice. Not seeing someone punished, but realizing they no longer have power over you. This next stretch of your life is not about proving anything to anyone. It's about showing up fully, honestly, joyfully for the version of yourself that refused to give up. You are not here to convince the wrong people to see your worth. You are here to walk forward so boldly that the right ones have no choice but to recognize it. So when that invitation comes, when the moment asks you to say yes to something you can't fully explain, trust yourself. Trust the pull. You've done the work. You've released the weight. Now let yourself rise. And if this lands for you, if you feel something shift inside as you read this, let it be known. Comment below, I trust the timing. I'm ready for what's next. Because sometimes, claiming it is the only step left. And so here we are, Leo, at the edge of a new chapter that doesn't just ask for your attention, but your presence. After everything we've explored together today, the fall, the rise, the return of abundance, the soul connection, the idea that won't leave you alone, and the moment that might change everything, I want you to remember one thing above all. You are not here to be a spectator in your own life. You are the author, the architect, the sacred force that gets to decide what comes next. It's easy to believe that fate is something that happens to us. But what if destiny is something we meet halfway through action, through belief, through the small but powerful choices we make every day? What if the turning point you've been waiting for has been waiting on you too, waiting on your courage, your softness, your willingness to believe again? This is your moment to say yes. Yes to the abundance that's already circling. Yes to the love that no longer asks you to shrink. Yes to the path you once abandoned because it felt too big, too risky, too early. And yes to the version of you who is finally ready to receive. The life that's calling you doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be present. Grounded. Open. Willing to move even if the step is small. Even if the voice inside you still doubts. Because you're not here to repeat the past. You're here to break patterns, rewrite stories, and rise not from fear, but from truth. So I'll ask you this, what if the life you want is already yours? And all that's missing is your decision to claim it? What if everything starts shifting the moment you say, out loud, I'm ready to receive what's meant for me? If this message reached your heart, even just a little, I want you to take a moment, not for me, but for yourself, and leave a comment below that says, I'm ready to embrace my destiny. That one sentence can be the signal that tells the universe, I'm listening. I'm awake. I'm in. And if something in this video stirred your spirit, if you felt even a flicker of alignment or hope, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone else who might need it too. The light you spread has a ripple effect. It plants seeds in places you can't yet see, and one day, those seeds bloom into miracles. Thank you for spending this time with me and with yourself. You didn't land here by accident. This, right now, is a soul contract, a quiet agreement between you and the part of you that knows you were made for more. Welcome back to your power. Welcome back to your light. Welcome back to the wealthiest, most radiant, most whole version of you. This is eternal mindfulness, and I can't wait to walk with you through whatever comes next.